Hey guys, it's TheFrXion here, Tiger Tank 1-2, I'm going to call me, I don't really care. Welcome back to World of Tanks, where we're going to be taking a look at the WZ-111 Model 6, another Tier 8 premium Chinese heavy tank. And you know what? This is going completely nuts. They are printing out premium tanks as if the world is going to end tomorrow. So, we're going to go through the characteristics and I'm going to give you guys my thoughts on it as always, just so that you are informed. I'm not going to be picking up any more premium tanks as I mentioned, and I think generally speaking, I think a majority of the player base is probably no longer interested in buying more premium tanks, at least more Chinese or Soviet premium tanks, because we have had a shit ton of them. So the WZ-111, I'm not really sure what kind of a gun that is, what caliber gun that is, but it must be above 100 millimeters. The alpha damage though is a bit interesting because it's not at 390, which is usually the case for all of the 122 millimeter guns the Chinese tanks use. And this time around it's probably a caliber that is a little bit below 122. The alpha is at 360 for the APCR shells and 440 for the heat shell, or the high explosive shell, excuse me. What is interesting about this tank is that the Chinese Tier 8 premium heavy tanks that we have so far, the WZ-111, the Alpine Tiger, which is the same, and the 112, they all have the same gun, and that gun has 250 heat penetration. As you can see right here, the average penetration is much better with 225 with the APCR. Still not going to be good enough, so you'll have to utilize the heat shells, which have a whopping 290 millimeters of penetration against these very thickly armored tanks. So that's an additional 40 millimeters of armor penetration with the heat shells that you get in comparison to the heat shells on the 112. Now the reload time with 10.3 seconds is rather short, I think. For this kind of alpha, I think 10.3 seconds, that's rather short for a tier 8 heavy tank. Now always keep in mind that these characteristics are not final, and that with 100% crew, the reload time is probably going to be looking a lot better. So aim time, which is at 2.8 seconds for a fully aimed in reticle, is also not going to be the case when you have 100% crew on it. It's much more going to be the case of 2.6 with the right equipment, with the right training, and with a little bit of premium consumables. You will be able to get that down to 2.4 seconds, maybe 2.3 seconds. Now, there's a bee that just flew into my flat, but we're going to continue. The dispersion of the tank at 100 meters is pretty atrocious, 0.4. With 100% crew, it's at 0.38. But I think you can still get it down with the field modification if they don't change anything around, and you're going to be able to use the tank at 0.35, 0.34. Now, gun elevation is pretty interesting because it has 8 degrees of gun depression, which is very un-China-like, if you can say it like that, because Chinese tanks usually don't have gun depression. 23 degrees of gun elevation, which is pretty nuts if you think about it, because it has 3 degrees more gun depression, or 3 degrees more gun elevation than a lot of the other tanks. Usually it's 20 degrees max. Ammo capacity, you're going to have more than enough rounds to not have to have any issues with your tank. 74 pieces, so you don't have to worry about that at all. And mobility wise, it actually has some very nice top speed of 50 kph, so it's on par with the WZ-111, the Alpine Tiger, but it has only 14.8 horsepower per ton. Now 14.8 horsepower per ton doesn't seem to be that great, but it's a heavy tank, so don't forget that. Now with a turbo, you can probably get it up to 16, 17 horsepower per ton. That, on the other hand, is going to be really interesting. Hull traverse, turret traverse, both not very good, 26 degrees per second, turret traverse with 24 degrees per second, but the armor is going to be fascinating, or interesting at least. The hull armor is going to be exact same as the WZ-111, so it's going to be identical, at least we'll have that. It has 1,550 hit points, and turret armor is 300 millimeters thick. We don't exactly know if there's a cupola on top because we don't really see the top of the tank so far. But 300 millimeters is extremely strong because it also has a heat shield. So this is another addition that this tank now gets. It has a heat shield so that you cannot go through with heat rounds on the side of the turret. That is probably something people will be looking forward to that like hull down tanks. I've heard there's still a lot of players that like hull down tanks. So view range for Chinese tank also 390 meters is also quite good. And yeah, generally speaking, I think from the characteristics, this tank could be a pretty decent vehicle. I personally am not interested in it at all, but just so you're informed, the hull is still the same as the other WZ-111, but the turret is different. We're going to take a look if we can actually see some pictures where the turret is actually shown. So right here you have a turret, and what you can see immediately is there is no more real cupola. There is a cupola right there. I'm going to see if we can zoom in a little bit more. It is raised a bit, but it's very, very slim. Except if you're shooting it from the side, it seems to be a very difficult place to hit the tank. Let's see if we have the other picture as well, where we can see a little bit of the side profile on the turret. It's a pretty large turret, so this behind part should also be an easy place where you can actually hit the tank. This could be a very nice addition, so when the tank turns the turret around, you can easily just slam in rounds after round into the side of the tank, because the turret is also elongated and it's flat. It's very flat, it's not rounded like the side here. So that could be something for us if we have to face this tank, and we'll have to face this tank eventually. But the turret, other than that, doesn't seem to have any apparent weak spots on top. The only place could be the part above the turret, and if you get lucky, you might be able to penetrate it with heat shells. So, having talked about that, having talked about the vehicle so far, what can we say about the WZ-111 Model 6? I think it's a tank that we absolutely did not need. I think that currently we are already in a trauma phase with the Vipera running around and slashing everyone's hopes and dreams. And I think just that Wargaming are going to be continuing with releasing new premium tanks. So I'm just going to be informing you guys, just so you know what the next vehicles are going to be. And yeah, I'm not going to be able to review them because I'm not going to be buying them unless I have the opportunity to earn them by playing the game, such as marathons. But I usually will not take part in marathons because I don't have the time to participate in 200 hours of grinding or something like that. Sorry, I have no time for that. Either way, I hope you guys did enjoy. Just a little information video, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Tell me what you think about the WZ-111, and I'll see you guys on the next video. Until then, have a good one.